Modals have a lot of different uses in the English language. You might also know them as modal auxiliary verbs. They're used in combination with a base verb in order to show some sort of likelihood or necessity or conclusion. We'll get into several different uses here. First one is modal of ability. We'll use words like can or be able to or could. In the present tense, we got subject, can or cannot base verb, subject, be or be not able to base verb, be, and then for question, is or are, am, subject, able to base verb, and then can, subject, base verb. All of these have optional object clauses. Right. For example, I am able to swim or am not able to swim. I can swim or cannot swim. These two have the same meaning. Can and be able to have the same meaning. Are you able to drive a car? Or can she do this math problem? These are all relating to ability. In the future, we'll just put will or will not. Before the modal be able to, we don't use can in the future. We'll use only be able to with will or will not. And so it's the same thing, subject will or will not be able to, base verb, object clause. And then for the question will subject, we just switch the will and the subject, keep be able to, and then base verb. They will be able to speak next year, for example. Will Harry be able to take me to school tomorrow? In the past, we're going to say subject, be or be not able to base verb, subject, could or could not be able to base verb, be or am or are, or was or were, subject, be able to base verb. So he was able to swim when he was 6. He could swim when he was 6. These two have the same meaning, could and was able to. Were you able to speak when you were 3? Those are all modals of ability. Let's take a look at some examples here. First one, blank you swim when you were 10. We just did that one, could. We blank get to the meeting on time yesterday because the train was delayed by 1 hour. So this looks like it was impossible. We couldn't. Remember, couldn't is only used in the past tense, and it means they weren't able to. He blank arrived to the party on time even after missing the train. So he was able to. He was very pleased, so it means he was able to. He's amazing. He can speak 5 languages. This is in the present tense. I blank drive a car until I was 34. It looks like couldn't. I was not able to. Then I moved to the countryside, so I had to learn. I looked everywhere for my glasses, but I couldn't find them anywhere. Past tense, wasn't able to. I searched for your house for ages. Luckily, I was able to, past tense, find it in the end. Remember, don't use can in the past tense. She's 7 years old, but she blank read yet. Her parents are getting her extra lessons. She can't. It's in the present tense. I read the book 3 times, but I blank understand it. We have a word of contrast here, so I don't or I can't still. Okay, and number 10, James blank speak Japanese when he lived in Japan, but he's forgotten most of it, so he could or he was able to. Why are we trying again? But I can't understand it. So I couldn't understand it. So we're still in the past tense. And let's try could. Yeah. Was able to and could generally have the same meaning, and this one was a little unclear because we have the present tense here. I suppose I should have said still can't if we have still can't, but we'll keep couldn't there. All right, let's go on to the next one, modals of necessity. Must and have to. You might also see have got to, same thing, same as have to. Subject must base verb, subject have to or has to base verb, or subject has got to, have got to base verb. And then for the question, do, does, subject have to, right? So we don't use have got to for questions, or we could use it, but it's not really important. It's a different grammar structure here. Do or does subject have to. We don't use has to even for the third person singular, he, she, it, or person's name. We only put one S, that's on the does, and then we keep this a base verb, have to, and then another base verb and an object clause. So we must submit our assignments before the deadline. Same thing as we could say we have to submit Some people will say that must is stronger, more obligatory. There's less of a choice. Although in practice, have to, have got to, and must are used interchangeably. I have to go to the store after school. I've got to go to the store after school. Those are the same things. Do I have to read this? Does he have to pay the bill? And then you've got some differences here. Employees must not smoke while at work. So if it's a formal prohibition, if somebody is not allowed to do something, we generally do use must. For the negative, you're not going to use he doesn't have to go, right? You could say employees are not to smoke while at work, but as far as modals are concerned, must is the way to go for the negative prohibitory, because whilst in the positive, have to and must and have got to are all interchangeable. In the negative, they do have different meaning. Employees must not smoke means there's no choice. Employees don't have to smoke means there's a choice. Like you don't have to go means there's a choice. You might go, you might not go. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. Next, in the future, subject will have to. Always use will have to and then base verb, or will subject have to, object clause. We will have to buy a new car next year. We will have to buy a new car next year. There's no choice in this one. Again, in the positive, will and must, have to and must have the same meaning. Will they have to pay for admission? We don't use must in the future. We're only using have to. And so, again, those have the same meaning, must and have to, no choice. Necessity, it's getting late now. I have to go. It's a necessity. Mike broke his leg yesterday. His leg is in a cast and he has to. No, he had better. No. And he will, for the next month, he will have to. For the next month, I blank talked to Ann about it. I have got to. Yep. She blanked to the bank yesterday. Had to go in the past tense. We can't just go away. We have to help him. Strong necessity. Tomorrow is Sunday. I don't have to go to school. Absence of necessity. I suppose you can go to school on Sunday. Well, in the Middle East, we go to school on Sunday, but in a lot of the rest of the world, they have Sunday off. So this would be better replaced with Saturday to be more global. But you can go, you just don't have to. You blank go to the supermarket. There's enough food in the refrigerator. You don't need to, or you don't have to. Right? You don't need to. This is not really the lesson we're looking at. You don't have to go. It's better. She blank work yesterday, so she spent the whole day in the park by the river. She didn't have to go. She didn't have to work. It's a secret. You blank tell anyone. You must not. It's a strong necessity or a prohibition. And I blank forget to call him today. Strong necessity not to do something. I must not forget. Okay. Next, modals of future possibility: may, might, or could. Subject, may, might, or could, base verb. So the Earth's temperature may, might, or could rise by up to 3 degrees. These are all the same. Same meaning. The pizza might not arrive on time. The pizza may not arrive on time. Those are both fine. The pizza could not arrive on time is incorrect because could not is used for something that's impossible in the past. We can make questions out of these by saying WH word if we want to, will, then subject, base verb, object clause, or WH be subject, going to, base verb. And let's take a look at some examples. Who will she ask to help her with her homework? And then for the answer, she may, might, or could ask her cousin. Next, where are we going to see the sunset? Here's this example. We're going to use the be verb and going to. These have the same meaning. And then the answer, we may, might, or could see it at Half Moon Bay. Let's take a look at some examples. She won prizes for her research. She must be really intelligent. I'd take an umbrella if I were you. It looks like it might rain. It blank be him. He's on holiday. It can't be him. It couldn't be him. He's on holiday until next week. Well, it's the present tense. It couldn't be him. Can't be him. Hey, guess what? I blank be getting a car for my birthday. It's not completely definite, so may or might. I can't believe you've been waiting all this time. You must be bored. His car is not here. He must have gone out. Look how much sugar and salt it's got in it. It can't be good for you, or it must not be good for you. I suppose we're only using may, might, and could here. That's got to be can't. We don't use couldn't in the present tense. Have you looked next to your computer? I think you have left your keys there. May, might have, may have, something like that. May and might have the same meaning. They are interchangeable. Modals of conclusion, finally. Must, has to, has got to, cannot, or could not. So we have subject, must, base verb, object clause. Or subject, has to, base verb, has to, got to, base verb, cannot, base verb, and could not, base verb. So we've been driving for a long time. We must have passed the shop back there. Movie tickets movie tickets only went on sale 15 minutes ago. They can't be sold out already. And this has got to be the right place. The map shows us right at the pin. So these are logical conclusions. Not conclusions like the end of a story, but conclusions meaning you're given some kind of information and you make some kind of inference based on that information. So if we've been driving for a long time, then we must have passed it because it can't be ahead. We've been driving for so long. Let's take a look at this. Or you might call them deduction, guesses or deductions. There's no reply. He must be out. I've got no idea where she is. Try the library. She might be in there. We're using might. Well, not for our unit grammar, but as a conclusion, absolutely. If I have no idea where she is, I'm not certain, so she might be in there. Look at the way that guy's walking. He must be drunk. I've been working since 5 this morning. Oh, you must be exhausted if you've been working since 5. You blank be hungry again. You've only just had dinner. You can't be hungry again. You just had dinner a moment ago. They blank got there already. They only left 10 minutes ago. They can't have got there already. That must be negative. They only left 10 minutes ago. If it's far, then obviously they're not there yet. You blank left in the office, I suppose. Left it in the office. You must have left it in the office, I suppose. You've forgotten something. Police are convinced the paintings blank taken out of the courtyard already. Must have been taken out of the courtyard already. Out of the country, excuse me. They blank got through the window. It's on the 21st floor. They couldn't have. All right, they can't have. Therefore, in the present tense. Judging by the present evidence, we think he might have used a disguise. I suppose 1 and 2 are possible. We think he might have, or he probably used a disguise. Okay, let's see if we got those correct. What did we get wrong? Must have was, oh, okay, anyway. Let's look at that one again, number 7. I didn't pay attention to that. You could have left the office, or you might have. Yeah, sure, those are both possibilities. Okay, last one, modals of advice. And then we'll look at modals with passive voice. Modals of advice: should, ought to, and had better. So blank, subject, should, ought to, or had better, base verb. You should listen to this podcast because it's really informative. We had better get going home. Again, we could say because my dad will be worried if we're late. Your friend ought to try wearing his hat a different way because it would look cooler. Subject, should, had better not, base verb. We had better not be late to class because the teacher is strict. I read an article that says we shouldn't drink more than 1 soda per day. Okay, these are just advice and questions. WH, should, subject, base verb. Or do, subject, base verb. Do you think, oh sorry, this is just starting up the question. Do you think I should wear the blue shirt or the white one? Where should I park the car? Should the chickens be in the house? Let's take a look at some examples. You can do it alone. Oops. We got modals of advice. Google quickly, modals of advice. their slow internet. And while we're waiting for the, oh, there it is. Modals of advice, exercises. Should, ought to, and had better. Looks right. Okay, the airline only allows two pieces of luggage. You blank pack too much or they have to take it out of the airport. Well, that's strong advice. All right. Oh, excuse me, had better not. I wasn't paying attention, sorry. My mother isn't feeling well, so I told her that she blank go to the doctor. She ought to go to the doctor. I think the grade my teacher gave me on the test is wrong, really. You blank talk. You blank to her. Ought to. You should to. No, you ought to talk to her. We don't say should to. So that's our hint there. Dave loved chocolate, but he blanked too much or he'll get fat. He shouldn't eat too much. I'm going to visit your country. Where blank if I want to go shopping? Where should I go? We're not going to use ought to in questions usually. I'm so hot. You blank your coat. No, you should take off your coat. I need help, doctor. My baby doesn't sleep well. What had I better do? No, we don't usually use had better in questions. What should I do? It's raining and I don't want to get my dress wet. I blank an umbrella. I had better to bring. We don't say had better to. Had better bring. That looks right. Had better not bring is incorrect if we don't want to get wet. Okay, and finally, modals with passive voice. Object or recipient of action comes first, and then the modal plus be, and then verb 3, by, and this can be implied. Doesn't always have to be there. Put a parentheses around this because we don't always have to say who the subject or active agent is. These cookies should be taken by the hungry students instead of the hungry students should take these cookies. This game can be played by people of all ages. Instead of people of all ages can play this game. We may be visited by a special guest today. A special guest may visit us today. Let's take a look at some examples here. You can do it alone, so it can be done alone. Right? We don't have to say the action agent because it's implied. They'll pay me at the end of the month. I'll be paid at the end of the month. And we don't have to say the action agent because it's implied. You must give students enough time to finish. Students must be given enough time to finish. And once again, we don't have to say the action agent. You can serve this wine with chicken or fish. This wine can be served with chicken or fish by you. You should finish the work before you leave. The work should be finished by you before you leave. Of course, if it's before you leave, then it's by you. You can prepare this dish the night before. This dish can be prepared the night before by you, again, and so on and so forth. Okay? So we have a lot of different uses for modals, and all of them share one thing in common at least. That's we're using base verbs with the modals. So make sure you know the difference between necessity and possibility and speculation, conclusion. Make sure your logical conclusions are logical, and then study up on some of these grammar patterns. It should be fine.